All right, we are in the WNZF Newsroom studio for this week's edition of Lifeline, the radio show connecting you to positivity in our community. I am Danielle Anderson, and I've got in the studio Susie Gamblain and Jay Sanchez. Thanks for coming in, you guys.
Oh, thank you for
Hello.
having us.
Yeah, and uh, it's so busy sometimes you forget to like book a guest. And Susie was so amazing. I texted her and she was like, "Yeah, I can do it." So I do want to thank you for hopping in here and being our guest this week.
Of course. You're welcome.
So, for people who don't know Susie, she is the amazing director of Flagler Volunteer Services. And, Jay and I actually got a really interesting history lesson last week. I didn't realize that you had been with the organization for quite some time.
Yes. Yeah. So actually, I was with the Retired Senior Volunteer Program, RSVP, before the organization was even formed. So I've been with them for 30 years. And the Flagler Volunteer Services was actually formed from a group of retired senior volunteer program volunteers.
So we talked about it, and I was hoping you would share that story a little bit because it's number one, some people in the audience will know some of the folks who you know.
Yes.
And the history is incredible.
Yeah. So the way that we were formed was actually in 2000. The school district was the sponsor for a federal grant for the RSVP program. And at that time, they decided that it didn't really fit into the K through 12. And so they decided to let go of that sponsorship. When they did that, the people that were applying for this federal grant to run the RSVP program were from out of county. So a group of our volunteers said, we really just don't think it would be right for us to be run by an organization outside of our county when we're focused on Flagler County. And so they felt like it was really important to have it be Flagler County run. So they they asked the school district to give them an extra year so that they could form a 501c3 nonprofit agency to apply for the grant. And the school district agreed to do that. So they formed Flagler Volunteer Services Incorporated and applied for the grant, received it. And they were also able to get additional funding from the county and some of the cities and able to open it to where it wasn't just retired senior volunteers, it was volunteers of all ages. And some of our founding members were Charlie Helm, who I know most people know, or a lot of people know, and then also my father, Brian Cooper. He was one of the founding members, and Johnny Grant, who was with Florida Healthcare. And there was a nice group of volunteers who really made this happen, and it could not have been done without them, going forth. And it was all volunteers that were running it from the start, and that made it all happen. So it was really a great thing.
It's really cool to hear that because, when you come into it, I've known you guys for like, I don't know, close to 15 years. And I had no idea that there was this whole other piece of history that came into it.
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of people just assume that we're a county agency because our name is Flagler Volunteer Services, and we're very ingrained and partnered with the county, the Board of County Commissioners, and emergency management in particular are, they're both funders and supporters of our agency, and we work hand in hand with them. So a lot of people just assume that we are a county organization when we're really a standalone 501c3 nonprofit.
And the cool thing is that you've worked your way up through the ranks. I mean, it wasn't like you walked in and somebody said, "Oh, you're the director." It's like you started early, right?
Yeah, I actually started, like I said, with the RSVP program. What happened was I was a stay-at-home mom, and they had an opening for a 10-hour-a-week data entry person to come in and actually help recruit volunteers also for the COP program. It was back when the COP program was first starting. That was my first position, was recruiting volunteers for the COP program because it was brand new to our county. And so I came in for just 10 hours a week and have worked my way up. I would have never dreamed back then that this would be my life and my career. Yeah.
It's incredible, though, because you're following in your dad's footsteps.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about him for those of us who didn't get to meet him?
Sure. So yeah, my dad actually was a big time volunteer. He even when I was a kid, he used to volunteer with the Optimist Club and do like the Christmas tree lots and stuff. That was the first volunteer work that I ever saw, was somebody at the Christmas tree lot selling Christmas trees to make money for an organization, which, I mean, I would love to do that now.
Hey, put it on the
It was
list.
fun. Yeah, it was fun. But he always volunteered and was always involved with nonprofits and stuff. He came here. We grew up in I grew up in Ormond. He lived in Ormond most of his life. He owned a business, electronics business in Daytona. But he came here. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long, long, long time ago, as the airport manager. So
Oh, wow.
he was the airport manager for Flagler County Airport.
Before Roy?
Yes. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I actually think there was somebody in between, but he was there for quite a few years when my kids were growing up and stuff. So, and then he worked at St. Augustine Airport as the assistant airport manager for until he retired.
And then he just couldn't let it go. He had to stay busy.
Yeah, well, during him being the airport manager here and the assistant airport manager in St. Augustine, he was on the board of directors and involved in volunteering. So
Wow.
he always was involved in volunteering his whole life. So he did. It is part of why I got involved and why I became. Who I am is because of the volunteer stuff that he's always done in his life. Mm-hmm.
And you've helped grow the program now to what it is today.
Yeah, when I first started, and when it was, I think, less than 400 volunteers, and now we on our entire rolls, now we have thousands of volunteers on our rolls. So it's definitely grown. It's definitely changed. A lot of differences, but it's a wonderful job because it's all about people that are trying to do good things for the community and making a difference. And every nonprofit we work with has programs making a difference for the community. And every volunteer who walks in the door, that's what they're there for, is to do something positive.
So just name drop a couple of really cool programs you have.
So we have our Reading Pals program, which is reading to kids in VPK through third grade. We're going to be recruiting soon for the upcoming school year. We have our emergency support services, which is all of our disaster stuff. And then we have our giving store program for the holidays, for kids to pick out gifts to give to their family members, all about learning the joy of giving. And we have our Blanketeers program, which is a group of mainly ladies who knit and crochet blankets for people that need, they're going through some type of crisis, need comfort and warmth.
And those Blanketeers are serious. I've seen them at the library. Is that where they are still?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
They do the most amazing work. I could say we get the best thank you notes from people who received a blanket or a baby sweater or something, that brought comfort and warmth to them. Yeah.
Have you ever seen them? They come into the library
No,
and take over like this room and just, they're serious. You're like,
Yeah. And if you don't know how to knit and crochet, they're typically willing to teach you. So they meet once a month, and a lot of the ladies, they share patterns and different things, but a lot of the ladies would love to teach people how to do it, just because you don't want that, to go away in time.
it's a lost art.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Jay, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Jay Sanchez. I pretty moved to Flagler County, to Palm Coast. We moved here about a year and a half ago. So the first thing we did was join the Sheriff's Academy, Citizens Academy.
Nice.
And that's how I learned a lot about not only Palm Coast, but the programs that we have. So the first thing I did is join the supplemental communication team, which is a volunteer working for emergency management at the EOC. So we do is we are amateur radio geeks, and we assist in any disaster that we did for the last hurricane we had. We were there, try to help out the community that way. Then I learned about the COP program. So I joined the COP
Oh, wow.
last year.
I didn't even recruit them.
Yeah. And I'm, doing patrol at least 4 hours a week. And then one day last month, at the end of last month, I received an email from Judy with the two positions that, we now have. And I like the one about disaster preparedness, which kind of leads or ties to what I do with the EOC and the COP group, I think. And yeah, I sent her my resume. She liked me, and here I am.
That's amazing. So I know we want to talk about like the new positions that have come to the Flagler Volunteer Services and how it's going to be helpful as well.
Yes. Yeah. So we were very lucky that we were able to partner with Flagler Cares and receive a Red Cross grant for long-term recovery and disaster preparedness needs in our community, which is huge for us, but it's really huge for the community because it allowed us to hire a couple of staff people who I have in the room with me, and also it will allow us to, reestablish a long-term recovery committee that will help any disaster survivors for like the hurricanes, especially if anyone was impacted by Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton, or if there's anything that comes up in this hurricane season. Let's knock on somewhere that there isn't. But also, it'll help us prepare our community to be ready for any type of event that happens. Because without having staff people to kind of put those things together, we find us doing the same things over and over again, and we want to see things grow and build and become stronger. We want to be resilient as a community, and this will truly help us. So we've hired Danielle as our long-term recovery lead and Jay as our disaster preparedness lead. So we're working together as a team with us and with Judy Busak, who is our volunteer coordinator in our office, to all work together to do those things to make our community better.
And the interesting thing, I've been reading the manual. We're talking about this is like a national effort. You think, okay, it's just people like Flagler Strong or the CERT team or whoever it is just getting together and trying to do something, but there's like standards and protocol.
Yeah. So the long-term recovery groups, what they have found throughout the nation, and is that communities that get all of their organizations that activate during disasters together and to plan for how to help people that have unmet needs are more resilient, are able to get back to a normal after an event quicker than areas that don't. So now it is definitely a standard that if there's any major event, that a long-term recovery group steps up and they work together. And it's not, even though we have the grant as Flagler Volunteer Services, it's really not us doing all of the things. It's all of the groups that are active during disasters coming together and sharing information on who has what resources, who needs what resources, who's working with which individuals, and putting that all together so that there's not as much duplication of services, not as much duplication of funding, and that everybody that is impacted is helped to meet any kind of unmet needs that they might have to get them back to a better place. So it's really important work, and it's really emotional. Like, I've seen it happen. We did this with the Hurricane Irma, and it can be very emotional and very draining somewhat, but it is very impactful and very powerful work. And when everybody comes together, there is, as bad as disasters are, there's no better time to showcase how good people are.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about the kinds of organizations that may want to get involved and also how we can prepare ahead of time for a disaster. So we'll be right back. Are we good?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Pretty good.
All right, ready? Okay. All right, so we are back with Flagler Volunteer Services, and we are talking about disaster preparedness and also long-term recovery needs. So, Susie, you were talking about long-term recovery and teams stepping up. What kind of organizations would be ideal to join the team?
Yeah, so really it takes the whole community. So you're really looking at, a lot of it is faith-based organizations, local nonprofits, government agencies, and it can even be for-profit businesses. If you think about what does a disaster survivor need, a lot of times it can be they need some kind of construction work. Maybe they need a roofer, so roofing companies Maybe they need mold remediation. So, an organization that does that, business that does that. Maybe they need tools or supplies from, hardware. All of those places can be involved, as well as volunteers. Maybe they need people that can help do things. But definitely money comes into play. So there's definitely always the need for funding. And so a lot of times faith-based organizations can help with some of that kind of need. There's always emotional needs. So the spiritual care and all of that is very important. So any faith-based, nonprofit, government, it's the whole community, everybody.
So I did have a question like that because I was thinking when it says something about constructions, and I know we're always like, make sure you're using a licensed contractor, make sure those people are legitimate. If we get someone involved, kind of like the Home Builders Association, do these folks, when they bring their services, do they get paid? And is there money to help support that?
So yes and no. It's a little bit of both. So most of the time when there's a major disaster, a major event, there is some funding that might come down through, different arenas, and that can be used for helping those that have additional needs. If that kind of grant comes through, I mean, like we don't have it in place right now, but I know that they did put a case manager grant through Volunteer Florida in place for our community, and that would allow for some funding to be used. So depending on what the funding levels are, a lot of times, like with Hurricane Irma, we did have a grant that allowed us to contract with contractors to do repairs. So we did use roofing companies, mold remediation, electricians, and like handyman type people to that we paid to do the work. So a lot of times we did get discounted prices sometimes. So there was some give and take. It wasn't all about making the money to help the people, but it's also not about
asking them to do everything for free.
Yeah. So it was definitely it just depends on what kind of funding comes down to your community after an event.
So when we're talking about getting prepared for disaster, I mean, we've been very fortunate, but how does Jay go about getting his work and getting started with his job, and talk about the breakfast too?
Yes.
Right. Go ahead.
Jay, you want to talk about the breakfast? Go ahead.
Yeah,
You've been
we're
working
planning.
on this.
Yeah, we're planning a breakfast meeting for August 12th at 9 a.m. at the EOC. And we are actually looking for organizations that are willing to come and present anything related to disaster preparedness or recovery. It would be great if you can volunteer your time to do, even if it's just a 15-minute presentation on how can your organization help the community, preparing the community for a hurricane, for example, or how to recover from a hurricane. So if you are there listening, please, we need that.
Yeah, and that's going to be open to the general public to
Correct.
come and hear all these great things from the different organizations that provide that kind of assistance. So it's pretty exciting to be doing this hurricane preparedness breakfast.
And then it does include free food.
Right.
Yes,
Free breakfast.
yes.
Free food just to come and listen and how to get started and get ready.
Yes, and we're still in the planning for this event, but we're hopeful that we might be able to also include some free handouts from free goodies, some free disaster preparedness supplies. So we're working on that, and hopefully that comes to fruition as well.
And you've kind of seen it from the gamut, from Matthew to Irma, to even a disaster can include like a tornado coming through, right?
Yes, yeah, we've seen a couple of tornadoes through Palm Coast and Flagler County, and we've seen definitely the hurricanes and even tropical storms. As much as a lot of people don't worry about a tropical storm, but I know years and years ago, we had Tropical Storm Faye, which caused a lot of flooding because it just sat over our county and poured rain for like 4 days. Like it didn't stop. It felt like it might be, I don't know.
The end of the world.
It was never going to end. But so it can be a variety of things. And then definitely the fires. I mean, the fires and, what was it?
98, right?
98,
That's
yeah.
what we talked about.
Yeah, the fires in 98 was my first disaster that I worked in. And so any event like that, there's a lot that goes into preparing for it and a lot that goes into recovering after an event like that.
And then the main thing that I kind of got out of, as I'm going along studying, it's that we're here to support the professionals.
Yes.
We're not here to get in their way, take the lead, any of that stuff. But our role is to support their efforts and fill the gaps where they may have needs, right?
Yes, that is very true. And also just to kind of to be a centralized location that understands who's doing what. Because what you'll find sometimes during disasters is that, there's an area that 2 or 3 organizations will go to feed them. And then there's another area that nobody goes to feed because they don't know that these other things are happening. So trying to make sure that everyone is aware, when there's a storm in particular, because we're in hurricane season. So I'm definitely thinking storms right now. But if there's a storm if there's a need that's on the east side of our county and the need on the west side of our county, that both are getting met by somebody. And having somebody kind of track who's doing what, who can tarp roofs, who can muck out homes, who can feed people, who can provide, food boxes versus who can provide hot meals. And how does that look for all of those residents that have those needs? And then when there's something unusual or some other unmet need that you might not necessarily think of right away, knowing who the partners are out there that are willing to provide that assistance as well. And lastly, I mean, just one of the things that we always seem to have happen after a big event here in Flagler County is if we have a group of volunteers who come from outside of our county, because that typically does happen, where can that group of volunteers stay? Where can they sleep? Where can they shower? Does anyone have tools they can borrow? Is anyone willing to feed them, breakfast, lunch, and dinner while they're here mucking homes or tarping roofs or cutting trees or doing those things that need to be done?
So we've got a great checklist, and actually, I think you're getting ready to send out an email to kind of like the community. So if your organization wants to get involved, this is a great opportunity to let us know what you can do, so that Jay can get you on the list and be ready ahead of anything happening, right?
Oh yeah, we need your help. We need all the volunteers. I mean, as Susie said, shelter organization that can provide shelter, shelter for pets,
Oh,
and
yeah.
food for pets. I mean, a lot of people have pets here, so I mean, they need help too. So yeah, we need your help.
So not to forget about the other really amazing things, I do want to say you've got some upcoming fundraisers that are happening with Flagler Volunteer Services. So can you tell us a few of them?
Sure. So we have our Giving Store Breakfast, which is on July 15th at the Hilton Garden Inn. This is one of our fundraisers to support our Giving Store program, which allows the kids to come through and shop for their family members for free. That is on our website, so it's easy to find all the information, but the tickets are $30 each. We do have everybody who comes brings gifts for the Giving Store program, and we do a raffle and give away a nice prize from those gifts that are brought in. And we'll do a little presentation, tell you all about the Giving Store at that Giving Store Breakfast. It's a great fundraiser to come to. We also have on September 6th, we have our Tiki Time 3, which is our dinner and silent auction. We did a Tiki Time a couple years ago, and then we did Tiki Time 2. Now we're doing Tiki Time 3 because we really love the way it's all set up. But it's going to be at the Hammock Community Center on September 6th. And I think we have the absolute best auction items of any organization. I have some volunteers who have been working diligently already, and they have still a lot of time to get more gifts, but they have a huge list of auction items already. So we fill the whole room. I mean, if you've ever been to Hammock Community Center, there's like little, like the walkways to the bathrooms, and there's a little room that has, in the back by the stage. All of those rooms are just full of auction items. So it's a
Wow.
great event, and I can't say enough about it. And then we also have rummage sales 2 a year for the Giving Store. So we have a lot of different fundraisers coming up. Our next rummage sale is in October.
And I would be remiss not to say really fast. Tell us about the cruise to Alaska.
And the cruise to Alaska, yeah, how could I not bring up that? So we do a group fundraising cruise every year, and we have done them for many, many years. We skipped for a couple years during COVID, but going back quite a long time, we've been doing these group fundraising cruises. Our next one, a lot of our volunteers, we've always done the Caribbean. A lot of the volunteers that travel with us have been like, can we go to Alaska? Can we go to Alaska? So we finally said, yes, we'll go to Alaska. So, so this year next year we're doing, in 2026, we are doing the Alaskan cruise. We leave on May 30th and we're back on June 6th. And we go out of Seattle, and it's on Norwegian. It's a great fundraising cruise. We've already got 27 cabins booked. So
wow.
we still have some cabins on hold, though, for a really great price. So if you're interested, definitely reach out and let us know.
So if people want to find out more, how do they get in touch with Flagler Volunteer Services?
So I would say the best thing for you to do first is go to our website, flaglervolunteer.org. Go to our website, but you can also reach us at a phone number 386-597-2950, or you can email me at Susie@flaglervolunteer.org, which my Susie, SUZY.
All right. Well, and thank you guys both for coming in. We're really excited about everything that's going to be happening and how we can support you in the community.
Yeah, thank you so much. We love being here.
Thank you for having us.
You got it. And just to let everybody know, this was Jay's first time on the radio. He did great, so let's give him a yay. Yay! We do want to thank WNZF News Radio, Flagler News Weekly, Vigilante Philanthropists, Massage by Natalie and Company, and our local Benjamin Moore Paint Store here in Palm Coast for sponsoring the show. And we will see you guys next week.